Good evening. I think we're ready to start. I apologize for the brief delay there. We've got folks on the committee coming back from different places, and we just want to make sure that everything is ready to go here. Good evening and welcome to Aurora's Committee of Adjustment meeting. I'll just throw in right now, there is some kind of event happening around 9 o'clock this evening, something to do with a basketball game. So we will try and keep things moving and mindful of folks who would like to maybe take part in keeping their eye on what's going on out there. I will start by introducing the committee members and staff. I am the committee chair for this meeting, and my name is Tom Plamondon. The remaining members of the committee are to my left, Michelle Boyer, Steve D'Angeli, and to my right, my vice chair, Clarence Louis, and Daniel Lajeunesse. The secretary for the meeting this evening is Sean LaPena, and Yashika is the recording member of staff. For each application that will be considered tonight, the following process will occur. I will briefly outline the purpose of the application or applications, and then the applicant or agent will then be given an opportunity to make a presentation. However, one is not required. It is the applicant's decision whether they wish to speak or let the application proceed on the merits of the information as received. Following any initial comments from the applicant, I will invite members of the public who have an interest in the application to come forward and address the committee. Those members of the public who wish to speak must clearly state their name and address and sign the corresponding request for notice form on the table in front of you here to my left. After completing the form, please hand it to the Secretary Treasurer. Each individual may speak only once on an issue, and once discussion has commenced in respect of a motion, no further presentation shall be made. If you require any assistance with regard to any visual material or technical assistance, please let me know before making any presentation, and I'll make sure that that gets taken care of. This public meeting is being audio and video recorded. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information are being recorded in accordance with the Municipal Act and Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our town clerk prepare accurate minutes and to create a record that is available to the general public, including on the town's website. Questions about this collection should be directed to the town clerk. Please be advised that the reports being considered tonight are also available again on the desk in front of you here. Should you wish to receive notification of any of the decisions for tonight's meeting, please complete the appropriate form. Owners and agents will automatically be notified. Please ensure that all questions and/or comments are directed through me as the chair. And if relevant, I will request the appropriate person respond. It should be noted that the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to any questions or comments should the committee feel that it is appropriate. So I will look to the committee for approval of the agenda for this evening's meeting. Look for an approval motion.
Sure. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I move that the agenda for tonight's session, Thursday, June 13, 2019, be approved.
And seconded by Michelle. Thank you very much. All in favor? And that is approved. I'll ask committee members if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. And seeing none at the table, thank you very much. We have adoption of minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting held on April the 11th, 2019, and that's meeting number 19-04. I'll look for a motion on that.
Through the chair, I move that we accept the meetings as written for meeting number 1904.
Thank you very much, and I'll look for a seconder. Clarence, thank you. All in favor? Thank you, that carries. Okay. So we will move to presentation of the applications. So we're going to do these one at a time. And the first one is the minor variance application MV 2019-09, Baker and DeKuyper, 7 Ken Lee Court. The applicant has made a request to defer the application, so I will look to the committee for a motion to defer. It is now.
Through the chair, I move that we accept the deferral of MV 2019-09.
Thank you. I'll look for a seconder for that. Steve, thank you. All in favor? Carries. So we have a few of these to go through, so I'll ask that you bear with us on this. The second is consent application 2019-05, again, Baker and Baker Insurance, Inc. at 7 Ken Lee and Court and 200 Wellington, again, requesting a deferral of the application. Who wants to? Stephen, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I move that consent application C 2019-05, Baker and Baker Insurance, be deferred.
Thank you. I'll look for a seconder on that. Clarence, thank you. Seconded. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Next one is, again, consent application C 2019-06, and that is Baker and DeKuyper, 7 Ken Lee Court and 200 Wellington Street West. Application requesting deferral. Michelle or Clarence?
Chair, I move that we accept the deferral of C 2019-06.
Thank you. Clarence, are you going to second that? Yeah, I thought you would. Thank you very much. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Item number 4, consent application C 2019-07, Baker and Baker Insurance, Inc., 7 Ken Lee Court and 200 Wellington Street West. Application with a deferral request.
Through the chair, I move for the deferral of consent application C 2019-07.
Thank you. Seconder? Daniel? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay. So the next item, item number 5, is minor variance application MV 2019-10. This is, I believe it's Scrow at 72 Carlisle Crescent. And I'll just, purpose of the application, Section 24.105.1.2 requires that no building or accessory structure shall be located closer to the eastern boundary of Bathurst Street road allowance than 50 meters. The applicant is proposing a cabana 43.1 meters from the road allowance limit, therefore requiring a variance of 6.9 meters. Departments and agencies circulated. Planning Division, application reviewed, no comments. Building Division, preliminary zoning review. Engineering Division, application reviewed, no comments. Operational Services, application reviewed, subject to conditions. Central York Fire Services, application reviewed, no comments. Electric Utilities, application reviewed, no comments. And York Region, application reviewed, no comments. Applicant or agent, good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name is Fausto Cortez. I'm the agent representing the owner in this matter. I'm just here to answer any questions you guys may have.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here from the public that wishes to speak on this application? Seeing none, thank you. I'll look to committee for any comments or questions to the applicant.
Question for the town planning. As part of the proposed conditions, there is a request that there is a measurement of tree health post-construction period. Can you expand on what constitute a post-construction period? Is that months? Is that a year or 2 years? What is the period that will constitute that post-construction?
Through you, Mr. Chair, can you please provide some additional clarification? I'm just not seeing that in my package, which condition specifically, and was that something that was requested by the Parks Department? I'm just trying to locate that.
So it's the internal memorandum dated June 7th to Antonio and the Committee of Adjustment Secretary from Sarah, Camp, Manager of Parks and Fleet,
Okay.
at page 1. And it's the first condition, the first point on the page, which in the package, I believe is page 8.
It's also in the recommendations on page 2 of the staff report. If you go to page 2, staff report, you'll see section 1A in the recommendations, during and post-construction periods, as well as measures aimed at tree health.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so just for additional clarification, you're requesting confirmation on the time period, so during and post-construction periods?
Correct. Just to be more specific, after construction, when would the health of the vegetation, trees, and so forth be reviewed for possible impact?
Through you, Mr. Chair, those details are typically included within the arborist report itself. So unfortunately, there's no timing listed in the condition itself. It would, however, it would be captured within the arborist report in terms of, during and post-construction. So unfortunately, I don't have any additional information.
No, as long as that professional makes the recommendation as to when to revisit, then I'm fine, as long as that is something that is going to be reviewed. So thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I have no issue at all following up with our Parks Department, and I can share that comment with Sarah, the Manager of Parks and Fleet.
Thank you.
We can request that that actually be included in the arborist report in terms of timing and details of that nature.
That's all.
Thank you. Okay, you're good? Michelle? Stephen? Yeah. So you're okay? Just point of clarification. I'll ask the, I'll start with the applicant if you don't mind. We're looking to amend that setback. So you're proposing a 43.1 meter, requiring then a variance of 6.9. If I go to the site plan that you've submitted, and I look at the measurement that's indicated on the drawing, to me, that looks like 39.75 Can you help me understand the difference between that?
Sure.
Thank you.
So our understanding is that there's a 50-meter requirement. However, it's 43.1 meters from the existing Bathurst Street. However, the 39.75 represents the section of road after the future road allowance. And therefore, that's the number that they're requesting. It's actually clarified in item number 2 on page 2 of the report, which specifically details the number differentials.
Yeah, I know it's in the report. I was just curious as to why the difference on the drawing. It might have been a little clearer, looking at something that showed what that road allowance looked like on that drawing, because very confusing.
Okay, I apologize. We didn't have the full survey of Bathurst Street, so we felt that it would not be proper to represent an estimate of what that information looked like without being exact. So we just provided the information that we had, that we knew was 100% accurate.
So you realize that if the committee moves forward on this, based on the numbers that we're looking at, the variance would be 6.9 meters, and you're okay with, obviously you're okay with that.
It would be 6.9 meters, which would be 39.75 meters from our existing property line, yes.
Okay, and I'll just circle back for a second. I'm going to assume that you've read the staff report. You're aware of the conditions that are included. You don't have any problem with those conditions as stated?
I've read the report. I understand that it's a staff report, and I typically don't like to go against staff reports. I'm not quite sure I understand the reasoning for asking for an arborist report, since the trees are, are 30 meters away from the area of construction. However, if it is a staff requested comment, then I guess we'd be more than willing to accommodate it.
Yeah, the way the conditions read, it says may.
Right.
Yeah, I think we all had a look at the property, and we understand
Right.
the nature of the existing conditions that are there. Okay. All right, that answers my question and clarity. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions from members of the committee? Everyone good? I'll look to the committee for a motion.
Through the chair, then, I move that we accept the minor variance MV 2019-10
With conditions.
with the conditions, right, as
Thank-
set out by staff.
Thank you very much. I'll look for a seconder. Yep, Daniel, thank you very much. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Moving forward to the next item on the agenda. This is a minor variance application for 10 Hawthorne Lane, Vitani. And this is minor variance application 2019-11, A through D. The purpose of application MV 2019-11A, Section 7.2 of the town zoning bylaw requires a minimum front yard setback of 9 meters. The applicant is proposing to construct a 2-story detached dwelling unit, which is 7.1 meters to the front property line, thereby requiring a variance of 1.9 meters. The purpose of application 11B, section 4.20 of the town's zoning bylaw states, eaves may project 0.7 meters into any required yard. The applicant is proposing to construct a 2-story detached dwelling unit with eaves projecting 2.1 meters into the required front yard, thereby requiring a variance of 1.4 meters. 11C, Section 7.2 of the town zoning bylaw requires a minimum interior side yard setback of 3 meters. The applicant is proposing to construct a two-story detached dwelling unit, which is 2.75 meters to the east interior side property line, thereby requiring a variance of 0.25 meter. 2019-11D, Section 5.6.1A triple I of the town zoning bylaw allows a maximum driveway width of 10 meters if the lot frontage is 18 meters or greater, with the exception that the maximum driveway width at the street line shall not exceed 6 meters. The applicant is proposing a driveway width of 6.7 meters, thereby requiring a variance of 0.7 meters at the street line. Departments and agencies circulated. Planning Division, application reviewed, no comments. Building Division, preliminary zoning review. Engineering Division, application reviewed, no comments. Operational Services, thank you. Application reviewed, subject to conditions. Central York Fire Services, application reviewed, no comments. Electric Utilities, application reviewed, no comments. And York Region, application reviewed, no comments. I'll ask for the applicant or agent. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Peter Higgins of Peter Higgins Architect Incorporated in Toronto. I'm here on behalf of my client, Mr. Mike Vitani, who unfortunately is out of the country. And I'm here to speak to you about this proposal. The committee might know that I designed a home across the street with similar variances, not exactly, at number 11 Hawthorne a couple of years ago, and met with approval by this committee, or the committee at the time. I have handed out copies to everyone, 11 by 17 copies, and I just wanted to quickly take you through that, if I may. I've marked up those copies, especially the front site plan.
Can I just
yes, sir.
stop you there? For the benefit of, thank you very much. I'm just going to ask staff to put that up so that members of the public can follow along.
Thank you. I wasn't sure it would fit.
Oh, we'll make it fit.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I've just added some red marks so that I could highlight that the existing, for example, the existing side yard setbacks are only 1.26 and 1.28 on either side of the house. In blue, at the front on the street side, I'm noting the existing roof overhang, the existing driveway width, which is 5.6, and yes, we are slightly wider than that, and the existing front wall or front yard setback of 7.69. So we are not all that much different from what is there today. The main reason for the front yard setback has to do with the angle of the front and rear property lines, creating a somewhat trapezoidal outline, and because of that, we set the easterly portion where the garages are further back to minimize the front yard setback, and also to allow the garages to read as being less noticeable, less. And if I can just put that up, you have this drawing. You have this 3D in your package a little further along. It shows the relationship. It's a photographic montage using the existing streetscape with the two houses on either side and the proposed home, with the garage portion set back, with one of the two garages broken up and set back even further. That's a view from the east looking northerly, and this is from the west looking northerly, if I may. Although we have a small side yard setback on the east side of, 2.79, which is a 0.21 meter side yard variance, which is about 8 inches. And I've highlighted that on the drawing in red with little chevrons. We increase the rear yard setback for the benefit of the neighbors to 5.03 meters behind that garage and mudroom area. The west side yard setback, as noted, has no variance. In terms of the massing of the house and the design of the house, I'm pointing out that we are at 8.8 meters to the very top of the roof, which is lower than the allowable. There's no rear yard setback variance, and there's no floor space index variance. We do have the variance at the front wall. I have shown it to you, again with, where would it be now? This area here, the front yard setback is not the total or the totality of the front yard. It's only this sliver here with the majority portion where the front entrance is. We have reviewed the staff report and concur that we also agree that this meets the 4 tests, and I think it's appropriate development for the neighborhood. I was going to just refer to these photographs from the street. I believe there's also 2 new houses under construction since these Google photographs were taken. The house here to the one side is the house we designed some years ago. This was the first new house on the street, and that's a close-up of the one we designed. And then an older home, which is on a sizable property, which also has, a different look than the existing remaining houses, which are somewhat 1960s, 1970s, split levels, story-and-a-half style houses. There have been comments from the neighbors, and I've read them all, that we're not respecting the character of the neighborhood. I'm a homeowner myself. I understand the comments. We have tried with this new design to minimize the impact by breaking up the facade into 2 parts, well, 3 parts, the roof portion, and it's a fully hipped roof, which means other than the front gable, there is no dormer feature, no gable feature that increases the height and minimizes sun getting into any neighboring properties. We've designed the lower section to be in stone to break up the mass of the front facade, and we're highlighting all the windows in a brick band across the front. We also have a rear shot that I believe you, in your package, have a rear 3D, which actually includes the actual grounds of the house, which I wasn't able to have mounted, but I will show the rest of the audience. That is the rear of the house. We think it's, again, well articulated. The terrace is only 3 steps above grade, so there's no overlook issues for privacy. We've minimized the side windows. What you're seeing here is the side yard on the west side, which is the full 3 meters, and this is the large setback here of 5.03 meters, which then narrows to 2.79. So I don't want to belabor things, and we do have something to watch tonight, so I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have or listen to the public.
Thank you very much, Mr. Higgins. We'll hold off on questions, of course, from members of the committee until we hear from the public. So if you want to grab a seat not too far away, that'd be appreciated. So I will ask if there is anyone here from the public that wishes to speak to this application. I'll ask that you come forward, clearly identify who you are and your address, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name's Stephen Hunt. I'm at 7 Hawthorne Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt.
We have submitted a formal objection to the application earlier this week. Part of this really has to do with what's going on in the neighborhood in terms of infill development. A lot of it speculative. And our concern has been how things have happened thus far with the treatment of the property, and really trying to work with everyone to ensure that development is progressive and is sympathetic to neighborhoods, especially ours. This is what the street looked like last year. That's the character of our street. I've been there for 2-3 years. Many people have been on the street for generations, and it's about that character. There's a lot of relief in the front yard setbacks. It's dominated by treescapes, not buildings. And our concern is allowing a substantially larger structure with a 2-story wall facade that's going to impose itself into that street. One of the things that upset myself and many of our neighbors is, and I work for developers. The old trick is take the tree down first and then ask for permission, and that's exactly what this guy did. There's a 24-foot centimeter tree in his front yard. It was one of the things that helped define the street as you enter it.
I'll just, you mentioned this guy.
The owner, the developer.
The current owner or
Botani.
the previous owner?
The current owner.
Current owner.
The
Okay.
tree went down a couple days before the sign went up.
Okay. We can only, we can't substantiate that, or if there's no record of it, it's certainly something that we can ask.
We can talk about it. Lots of people give evidence on that matter, trust me. In any event, when we're asking for relief in front yard setbacks, particularly when you're trying to honor, say, an existing built condition, you have to look at many things. And one of the biggest issue here, of course, is the massing of the building. The massing of the proposed structure is quite a bit different than the current structure at its current setback. And so the difference in its street presence is quite drastic. I didn't have Mr. Higgins' drawings on computer, but we did crudely try to represent the impact of this building sitting on that lot next year versus what you see there.
Just orient me on that photograph, if you don't mind. Can you put it back up? Your photograph, can you put that back up just for a second? So where am I on the street, and what direction am I looking?
You're looking westerly.
I'm looking westerly, okay.
The subject property is right here.
I see, okay, thank you.
That's the tree.
Right,
There's some mature trees across the street.
okay, thank you.
This is for perspective. It's a little bit closer where we're trying to replicate what's going to happen in here after this tree's down and after that house is down. And it's crude. I apologize for it. It's the best we could do on Photoshop in the time that we had. It really juts forward. The angle might be a little bit off here. But even in Mr. Higgins' drawings, you could see the difference in massing between this home and that one. And so what we're the last to oppose development. I'd be out of business if that were the case. But it's about having it be done in a sensitive manner, respectful of the scale of the building. I can appreciate his comments with respect to striping the building with material, but it's still mass. It's still a wall. If it had more relief to it, the home that Mr. Higgins designed across the street has some of the elements that are a little more sympathetic to our street. This home here has a one-story porch. It has lowered eaves lines. It's a lot closer to the character of our street than what's been proposed. This home as well, it's a two-story home that's been sensibly massed and, again, sympathetic to the street. My own home was a two-story lift, but I only did it on a portion of the building. Lots of one-story elements to protect the arbor of the trees, to really keep that character that you see in that picture. And that's some nice homes sitting in the midst of some mature trees. With respect to the actual application, I don't think there's any regard in the home size and external design to harmonize with our street. Some of the variances requested reflect some of the existing non-conforming building setbacks. However, the new home has an entirely different building massing, as I've mentioned. The house will have an entirely different character and street presence. The sheer scale and dominance of the home as it juts forward will overshadow and impose itself into the streetscape. This is not a minor request. We think architecturally there's a level of treatment in previous homes that we think this one should emulate, at least respond to. Notwithstanding the streetscape issues, the proposed building also overshadows the rear gardens of adjacent homes. The green here is the depth of the house beside to the east. This is the home to the west. I'm just trying to put into context the scale of this home. So it's not asking for any other relief in terms of coverage. I mean, they're entitled to build a large home here. It's not about the size. It's just that even as a spec home, it's not really needed. How can you justify reducing the front yard setback? I failed to hear the reason other than, well, we had it before, so we need it now. Well, the home proposed extends quite far back towards the minimum rear yard setback, so they're capturing the space there that they need to build a home of today's needs, perhaps. And style may differ, but when it's done tastefully, it only serves to enrich the streetscape. I have a contemporary home. I get lots of compliments from my neighbors. The home styles that Mr. Higgins has done and others have done in the street have been great, but there's a certain massing character and complementary approaches to how architecture is treated that we would like to see here. It's our opinion, this is Sarah Walsh, my wife, that this application is premature and should be denied. Lack of courtesy by the developer to properly present the variances to the neighbors in advance of an application is a courtesy that I always extend in my developments. Providing the house with a higher level of design and greater articulation and relief in its massing, including the introduction of a one-story porch and varied eaves and roof lines. And we believe that there's no need for the building to be any closer than what the bylaw requires. The relief of 1.9 meters into the required front yard setback is not minor in nature. It represents a 20% variance in the requirement. It's not meeting the test. It's the resulting building form, which is significantly more imposing than an existing dwelling or those of newer homes on the street, is not appropriate or desirable for the property or neighborhood. It doesn't meet the test. It is not in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw or the official plans. It's not meeting any of these tests. And we respectfully ask that it be denied. I'll be around, obviously, to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Is there anyone else who, yes, please come forward. Again, I'll ask for your name and your address. And before you do, the chair is going to recognize the two letters that we have received. I don't recall, Mr. Hunt, seeing anything in writing from you. You don't have to comment on that. We'll come back to that. But the two that I do want to acknowledge that we received were from the owner of 10 Hawthorne Lane, and I believe it is Heather and Andrew Bourne. And the second letter that we received was, sorry, not 10, it was 5 Hawthorne Lane, re-10 Hawthorne. So the Bournes are at 5 Hawthorne Lane, and Edward Lax and Susan, I believe it's Crandallmeyer, at 6 Hawthorne Lane. And those are the two items that we did receive in our package. Good evening.
Members of the committee. My name is Mary Neal. I live at number 9 Hawthorne Lane, and I absolutely support the comments of my neighbor, Mr. Hunt. But I would like to emphasize my experience about a month ago, having lived at 9 Hawthorne Lane for, I think it's 42 years. And when I moved to that home, there was a rather new maple tree planted. That tree was at least 42, probably 45 years old. When about 6 weeks ago, I was awakened by the sound of a truck, a large truck. So quickly went across the street to ask, what are you doing? It was obvious it was a tree, an arborist truck. And the chap leaned out of the window and he said, lady, we're going to cut down this tree. And there are others we're going to cut down in behind. I said, why? He said, there seems to be some, well, there is. There's allowance in this town, which confounds me, but you can cut down 3 trees a year. And so we're about to cut this one down. And it went down in an hour. And I must say, to be emotional, I was emotional. It really was upsetting. And then there were trees taken down at the rear of the property as well. As Mr. Hunt said, probably several days before the sign of an application for variance. The treescape of this street is beautiful. It's one of the beauties of our street. It enhances our street. It's a canopy of trees. The tree will go, and as I see Mr. Higgins' architect's design, there isn't a tree in the front. Maybe there will be, but it's going to take another 40 years to be what it was. And so to those of you who are elected council members, I really think, and I want to interject also to add that I immediately went to the new building of the town to speak to the arborist there. And she said to me, oh yes, you can take 3 trees a year. And the definition is if it exceeds 27 inches, I'm speaking in inches as she told me, it needs then to be approved. So she said, go home and measure the stump. And the stump, sir, is still there. So there's evidence. And I showed her pictures. And she knew how upset I was about it. And she said, that is the only way that there can be any change to it, and it's down anyways. Unfortunately, I deleted the pictures because I didn't think it was going to be, and frustratingly, I deleted them. So I went home and I measured it, and it's 25 inches. So possibly it would have met the requirements, but I do think we need to look at that. I have kids living in Leaside, and they were just shocked. They said, Mom, every tree in Leaside, it cannot arbitrarily just taken down. So that's the point I wish to make this evening, and thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening to the committee and Mr. Chair. My name is Michael Ronco, and I live at 15 Hawthorne Lane. I'm up here just to reiterate, I believe Mr. Hunt had a lot of good points, and I just want to reiterate that with respect to the setback being 9 meters, 2 on 9 is, more than 20%, and again, going to whether or not that meets the test of is this variance minor or not. In my opinion, a 20% variance is not minor. And also to reiterate Mr. Hunt's comments with respect to the desirability of the home. I do feel that it could be there could be more of a mindful approach in terms of the design and the massing of the front wall, especially if it's being requested to be 6 feet closer to the street, to have it mesh a little bit better, whether it's relief. I know that Mr. Higgins said that there's relief on the garage side, but perhaps a little bit more relief on the other wall, or something, possibly bringing roof lines down to the first floor, something that would allow it to in-keep a little bit more with the what we have on the street. So I just wanted to reiterate those points, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Neanna Reed. I am at 20 Hawthorne Lane, and I was born and raised on Hawthorne Lane. I'm second generation, and we are thrilled to be raising the third generation, so I am very sensitive to the street. And what I will tell you is my husband and I are well aware of development and would encourage it. We are very pragmatic and understand that it's happening all around us, and I would say that we entirely agree with Mr. Hunt and our other neighbors' opinions. These are not minor variances. I would tell you if I lived next door, they would not be minor, looking out my front window. And although we do respect development, we sometimes believe that it's how and not what you're doing. And obviously, as you heard, the tree coming down, although minor to some, is very emotional for others. And it's a neighborhood where people, obviously like us, we return and we want to raise children. And we want to be there for a long time. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate that. And I'll ask if there is anyone else who wishes to address the committee. I should point out that once you've spoken. Oh, please, yeah, okay. Yeah, just
Apologies.
clarify that. No?
Yeah. A letter was emailed into Antonio on Monday morning. We got a kickback that he was on vacation.
Right.
I then called the planning department. I actually left voicemail for Sean. I spoke to the receptionist. She said email it to the planning reception email, and it was done so. And I fear that several other letters ended up in Neverland, including mine.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for the clarity. Yeah, Sean, do you want to just comment on that? I want to go back to Mr. Higgins, but go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quickly, Antonio, just to confirm, he does have an out-of-office reply informing that he is away, as you had mentioned, and that that for further assistance, please contact planning@aurora.ca. So anyone who would have sent an email would have gotten that out-of-office response and would have known or should have known to send an email to the address as mentioned, as referenced in the email, just as a point of clarification. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask the applicant if they want to address some of the comments that have been made by members of the public before we allow the members of the committee to come forward.
Certainly. Thank you very much. There's been a lot of talk about the architecture. I have a thick skin, but I'm also sensitive as a homeowner, and I've had lots of crappy architecture built around me, and I do a lot of work in Leaside, and I believe it was Mary talked about her children in Leaside and the restrictions in Toronto over trees. They are very, very strict. There's no question. I love trees myself. I hear it all. My client asked to build a house that would be reasonably cost-effective to build. So the first thing that went out from the design that was originally proposed was a roof that would be brought down to lessen the wall height, because there's a lot of cost in doing that, both from framing stage, drywall stage, etc. I'm certainly prepared to go back to the drawing board and more than happy to meet with the neighbors afterwards and receive, if they would give me their email addresses, and I would happily, with my client's permission, who unfortunately is not here, perhaps come back to them with some facade sketches that perhaps might minimize in their eyes the scope or the size of the house. I do want to address a couple of things. The tree was 22 inches in diameter and thus was well below the allowable. I did not coach my client to take the tree down. I love trees, and I said it would be far nicer to have a beautiful tree in front. He disagreed, but we have a landscape plan coming that has 6 new trees, and that, although will take some time to grow, will eventually, for those who are first, second, and third generation on the street, will provide good shading and also character for the house. I would also remind the members that the front yard setback is not the totality of the front of the house. The front yard setback, and I've highlighted it on your own drawings there, we're at almost 9 meters to this point. We're at 8.85 meters to this point. We're at 8.89 meters to this point. It's the center section that is at issue. We're at 7.14 only on the tip of that lump. So we're talking about 6 feet, and as a variance, I'm just reminding the committee that it's a corner of the house, it's not the totality. It is not that different from what is there now. The existing corner of the house, as I said earlier, is at 7.69, which is actually closer to the property line than we're proposing. It's not, excuse me, we're at 7.14, and the existing house is at 7.69. These lots, as I think everyone knows, are quite shallow. We wanted to make sure we didn't have a rear yard setback, and we wanted to make sure there was still a decent amount of space for the rear yard. And because of the nature of the angle of the rear yard and the front yard, we had to pick a point. We're not going to be square to the street. That would be out of character. But we decided to minimize the depth of the house on the east side in order to maintain, because that's where the largest backyard was. And that, kind of like squishing the sausage, it made this a little deeper or in the middle. But this corner is not a variance. That's certainly not a variance. We have a large setback here. I hear all of their concerns about the front yard setback and the style of the house not being in keeping. I don't think anybody can dictate style. My client's very happy with the way this house looks. We've rendered it so that it's showing a true rendition of itself. Suffice to say that development is coming. It is here. There are a number of new homes on the street, and there will be many more, given the size of the lots and the desirability of the neighborhood. I'd like to think that over time this house will certainly easily fit in. And I think the variances before you are minor. The staff report suggests as such because it suggests that we are meeting the 4 tests. And I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins, for those responses and the offer to sit down with the residents here. I'm sure that that they would appreciate that. Probably just an oversight that it didn't happen before this came forward.
Well, I did ask my client to please take these drawings to the neighbors. He felt that there would be an outburst and wasn't wanting to hear that. I told him that's tough luck. You should do it. He was out of the country. I have Crohn's disease. I have been very sick lately, and I would have happily done it, and I could not do it. Now, we're hearing it all tonight. I can do my best. I would like this committee to approve what's in front of them with the knowledge for the neighbors that I'd be happy to come back and try to soften the facade to minimize what they think is something that is not meeting the characteristics of the neighborhood,
Okay.
even though it's not taller than it needs to be, etc.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll turn it over to members of the committee. Maybe, Mr. Higgins, just hold on right where you are, because I think a lot of the questions will be directed to you or to staff. Let me start. Michelle? It's not on yet. Please. Are we okay, Ishika?
All right, thank you. Thanks for your presentation. So through the chair, I just had a question on that front setback. What would be the effort in terms of just moving that home back or readjusting the design so that that variance is unneeded?
Well, I think the front yard setback of some sort would be needed on this property, given the size of the house that most of my clients want to build today. And because of the rear yard setback issue, we would have to come back probably and have a rear yard setback variance. Not necessarily, but my gut feeling would be that if you're pushing the house back or reshaping it, there's going to be more house in the backyard.
Okay, and through the chair, how big is the home square
In
footage?
terms of square feet, it's 4,700 square feet.
And if you were to move that or reduce or remove that variance in the front, how further reduced would the
Well,
square
remember,
footage?
we don't have a floor space index variance. That would be a little difficult to answer right now, but it would go down by a magnitude of 100 to a couple of hundred square feet.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Stephen? I'll work from my left to my right.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to confirm with staff that the street is in a stable neighborhood according to the official plan.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct.
You'll have to hit it every time.
Thank you, Sean. Through you, Mr. Chair. So if you could just refresh our memory, what are the objectives of the stable neighborhood as part of the official plan?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to summarize briefly, the policies of this designation are intended to ensure that the area is protected from incompatible forms of development, but at the same time is permitted to evolve and be enhanced over time.
Thank you. So, Mr. Higgins, here's building on my colleague's question here. What I'm hearing is that from your comments that the owner wants to maximize the square footage of the home. You know, and I'm looking at this, balancing it with, you know, being cognizant and recognizing the efforts that you've made to fit into the neighborhood with materials, the architecture. But as I see it, one of the fundamental requirements to build in this neighborhoods is that it meets the objective of stable neighborhoods. And so what I'm hearing here is that you need the front yard setback because the client wants to maximize the size of the house.
If I may answer, no, that's not the case at all.
Right.
If he wanted to maximize the size of the house, he would have pushed the northeast corner directly in line with the allowable 3 meters. He would have pushed the back of the house towards the allowable rear yard setback, which is here. So, no, I don't think you can say that at all, in my opinion, I'm sorry. He asked me to design a house that had the attributes of what he wanted to develop and sell, and that includes 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, family room, small office, all of what you would see normally on a home of this size, on a property like this. Right. Not necessarily what you would see on an existing home in this area, for sure, because I grew up in the 50s. I had 9 brothers and sisters, and we all shared beds. People don't look to that as much anymore. I'm always coaching them to go smaller, but this is smaller than it could be by quite some amount. Okay. What I think people are referring to, if I've heard it properly, is that because of its design being not with a pulled-down roof, not with one-story elements, Mr. Hunt suggested a front porch, which would only make matters worse in terms of front yard setback. That I think they're feeling that this house is out of context architecturally, and I would say that I don't think, as much as I think that we all have our opinions, I think it's still a beautiful home. Now, having said that, I want to come away with a win, and I want to come away with a feeling, and I mean this truthfully, as a homeowner and father and grandfather, to say that I am willing to look at the design of this and see what I can do to minimize the massing. I don't think we're going to be pulling the roof down, so the wall height will not change, but perhaps the gable will go, perhaps the second floor over the entrance would be pushed back so that only the front entrance and the library window would be forward. Those would be the only two elements that would be at variance, and the rest of the second floor would be pushed back to eliminate that. In essence, that would become like a front porch. Remember that this is a similar lot to the house we designed across the street in number 11, and my client did not want to copy it. So he asked me to be specifically different from across the street, and we have done that. Okay. So I can work within these parameters. The house will be smaller. I believe I can convince my client of that, but believe me, it is not as big as it could be. So okay. I hope that's a long answer to your question, but a good one.
No, it is a good answer. Thank you. And once again, I do respect the efforts that you've made for the stable neighborhoods. If you could put up the first drawing that or the first comment that you made with or you drew a line with the rear yard setback. Right there, where you drew the red line. That's the rear. Yes. Right.
Picks up the corner there.
So the question is, that variance that you're looking for the front yard setback, if you were to move it back and somehow, which would minimize the impact of the massing at the front, if you could let me know why wouldn't it be, why is it set where it is, and what would be the impact if you were to move it back to the variance request?
It's a family neighborhood, as has been noted. They would like to have a patio area at 1 or 2 steps down from the main floor and 1 or 2 steps up from the garden to be able to entertain on. They want to have a small window well to the basement because the house is located very close to grade. That's why there is no height variance. And in terms of getting basement windows in, it's difficult to get them in without a window well. So that window well is here, and it leaves, probably on average about a 30-foot deep backyard. My clients don't want to lose that, and I think that's fair. So my point to you is, I could, if you want, I could mark up the site plan showing that the variance to the front yard setback, the majority of the variance is only 1 story. Mm-hmm. And if you would accept that, I would sign it, initial it, and put it in, and I would work towards that, as I've said to the neighbors. However, I stand by the staff report. I think the staff feels that this is quite appropriate for the neighborhood in transition. I don't want to move the house back. That would be something I don't think my client would ever allow. He's asked for the front yard setback, certainly. It's not dissimilar to the existing house. It's not that dissimilar to the 8 meters that we received across the street instead of 9 meters. So you could say I'd be perhaps happy to go with 8 meters instead of what we've asked for. Or I could keep the existing front yard setback but push the second floor back.
Thank you. And just one further question. Why is the 0.7 meter variance required for the driveway?
Well, it doesn't need to be. We could live without it. We were forgetting that the width of the driveway was supposed to taper coming to the street line. If you would like, we're happy to remove that. The main place to have the width is towards the garage, and I think it's a minor variance, but if this committee chooses to eliminate that as a variance, we'd be absolutely fine with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
And
Continuing to move across, Clarence?
through the chair, I understand from sir, your comments that there are a number of characteristics that your clients want to keep as part of this design you prepared. Is that correct?
Well, they allowed me to design the home. They knew me from having designed the home across the street. I don't like copying designs, so I didn't want to, and I told them straight up I wouldn't. They asked me to simply make the house a little more simple than the one across the street because it would be more cost effective to have a level soffit here in the eavesdrop as opposed to bringing it up and down. I'm not going to play with their money, so I think I have to respect that. But really, that's the only thing that they asked for, a certain size house, a decent sized backyard, and there we have it.
And just echoing your earlier comment, it is to build a home on a cost-effective basis in order to sell it, correct?
My understanding is yes, just like this neighborhood was developed many, many years ago by developers. It was a subdivision. It's grown up. It's now in its second phase. Some people are renovating and putting additions on. My client is asked to take away the existing house, which was a fairly small house, and build a new house. And the fact that he's a developer, yes, I understand that he won't be living on the street, but that doesn't mean that as an architect, I'm not very, very interested in what neighbors are saying. As I said, I was hit by the bland architecture comment, but I respect that. And I'd like to have a chance to perhaps improve on that at my client's expense.
Certainly, I understand your point, and my concern of what your submissions have been is that at the end of the day, here we are with a developer who, like most people in business, is trying to maximize his profit on the basis of building a house that's cost effective with the certain characteristics and the design that you have prepared and presented before this committee. I just want to, and I agree with the concerns that were made by members of the public. I mean, to the extent that a home can be designed to, for example, keep within the other houses that were recently built on the street, perhaps doesn't require the front setback that have been requested, then I think we might be looking at something of a different story in terms of the number of members of the public that have voiced their complaints, and frankly the concern that I have with respect to the design of the home. But I will leave that comment with you as.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
I hear it.
Daniel?
Thank you through the chair. Just want to expand a little bit on some of my thoughts and expand on what Clarence was talking about. And obviously separating the architect from the owner and the builder. As the story develops, you really feel as though the tree cutting, the front easement or the front variance, and even the comments that trees in the back, which I'll get back to in a second, will probably be cut as well. And the fact that that individual will be selling the home and then leaving and not wanting to talk to the neighbors, there really seems to be a story that you can sort of extrapolate from all those points. That being said, that's not my job to work off of those, but just to keep them in mind. You mentioned that the section in the middle that protrudes, which is at the corner of all of this,
Yes.
and as you can see, we're talking very much about the front of the property.
Yes.
the front is a library or den or office, and then the top is a third bed, or I think it's called the third bedroom.
It's a bedroom, yes.
That is something that if the community, the committee, whomever has concerns, that is, as you had mentioned before, something that could be played with in order to appease all those comments.
Possibly, yes.
So I'm just going to park that and get to the trees in the back. There is one tree that's fairly large, and then one that is pretty darn close to the property, to the structure. However, the 3D graphs do not show that tree. What is the, and that might be the builder, not the architect, but what are the plans for the trees in the back?
Well, one tree had to be removed in the rear. This one here.
That one is gone, okay.
My understanding it's gone. I haven't visited the site since the trees were cut. I was trying to get there before this meeting, but it took so long to get up the 404, I ran out of time. So, as was earlier stated, you're allowed to cut down 3 trees. They're all undersized. One of them, particularly at the rear, had to go because it was too close to the corner of the house.
Mm-hmm.
The other tree, I'm sad to see it go. It's here.
Mm-hmm.
It was here, excuse me. And it was a good-sized tree, although undersized. I remind you that we are planning to plant 6 new trees. My client felt that the tree was in the way. His arborist said it was in good shape, but not great shape. And he wanted to be able to start fresh with new trees at the position that he wanted them in. So he cut the trees down.
And the final tree being the largest of the circles on the property line.
I don't believe that's been touched.
That's been touched.
It's a boundary tree.
And to the town, or to the planning team, that being, I don't know if it's on the line, it's hard to tell. I would,
That tree is
yes.
split between 2 properties. It would be what the Ontario law would call a boundary tree, and you would not be able to take that down without permission from the other neighbor that it shares its boundary with.
Okay, good to know, because I was just looking at Google Maps, and it was making it difficult to see if there was something behind there.
It's the
There was a
largest
concession,
tree.
but,
It's the largest tree on the property without question.
okay. I think all I've done is verbalize some thoughts. I don't really have a question, so I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
You're welcome, but if I could follow with that, and it's maybe somewhat unorthodox, we would prefer not to have a deferral. If this committee saw fit to approve the front yard setback at 8 meters, or at the present required or requested, but only be a 1-story element at that point, if you wanted to consider that, I would do my utmost to convince my client. However, he is relying on me to be his expert, and we would like to see this built, and I would like to see a house built that, as I said a number of times now, would meet with at least some of the neighbors' approval.
All right, thank you. What I will do is, I've got some comments and some questions, and as is typical form for this committee, I'll circle back before I ask for any motions. If there are any follow-up questions. Mr. Higgins, first of all, just, you may or may not be aware, I'm the only member from the previous committee that was around to see many of these types of applications come forward. And I can tell you that with fresh eyes and expertise currently at this table, there's certainly different observations and comments that are being made, which I think is a good thing. I spent, I had 2 visits to the site. The most recent being yesterday, and I stopped and took some liberties with some of the neighbors and had a chat. And some of the comments that have been made this evening were the same as those that I heard from residents on the street, and I think I recognize some faces here. And I'll thank all of the residences that did come forward and express your comments and concerns, because it's unfortunate that the developer owner, I'll say the owner, perhaps not you, Mr. Higgins, because I think you would have, I heard you suggest that you suggested to the developer that he do that. And, you know, I've been involved in development on the planning side of things as a consultant for many years, and planners and architects have to have that thick skin. I mean, that's why, you know, you're there. So a lot of the comments that I've heard have to do with issues that are excluded from what you're asking. Excluded. The height of the building, the massing of the building, the architectural appearance are not issues here that this committee has to address, nor is it within our powers to address. Your lot coverage is 33.86%, for example. We talk about the footprint being very large, but that is within the existing regulations. We've heard a lot about the height. Well, the height is not at issue. I'm going to point out that the side setbacks are actually being improved, albeit the eastern reduction is 0.21 meters. It's still there. It's still required. I look at the application itself, Mr. Higgins, and one of the questions that I always look at, and I will question every person who comes forward, when it says, why can you not meet the requirements of the regulation? The house, to my knowledge, has not been sold. The house, to my knowledge, is not subject to a conditional offer. And I ask, where is the hardship? You know, there really isn't a hardship. You're not asking on behalf of someone who's going to live there that they have some unique condition that warrants a reduction to setbacks or eave projections or driveway widths. And what I read on the application is because it's a trapezoid. So when I see that, I start playing with it. And I did 2 things. I actually flipped it. And of course, in doing that, I say to myself, well, maybe, you know, because of the orientation with the sun and, you know, parts of the house, they want the sun in one particular area. And I thought, well, you've got living areas on both east and west. So if you flipped it, you might not have as big an issue with that front setback. And then I thought, okay, the real, and I'll pick up on one of my colleagues' comments, Stephen made it, the breakfast area at the back of the property is a single story. And it's a breakfast area. If you were to take the family room to the east and move that square footage to the east behind the fireplace, the proposed fireplace, you wouldn't need a setback variance at all. and you would still maintain the square footage, total square footage. So even without flipping it, you could still max out on that. I know you're smiling, and I'm going to wait.
With you, I just want to make
Go ahead.
one little point. The .21 variance, which is 8 inches, is something that my client didn't want to go to, but I said it will allow us to create a separation in what otherwise was going to be a large 2-car garage. So to be able to have 2 8.5-foot doors with a little bit of space, and then a setback, and a little bit of space, and then another garage door, we needed 8 extra inches.
Well, I'm not talking about that at all.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
But you're talking about filling in behind that.
I'm talking about going in behind it.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, I've got a little sketch. If we want to throw it up, and we can show it to the folks here, but I think you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Yeah. And then I looked at the interior layout of it, and I looked at, okay, well, instead of the breakfast area being at the rear of the property, it's now between that lovely island in the kitchen, moving the bar area and what is the other feature there? There's a bar area
Pantry?
and what is that, a wine hall? What is the little hallway there?
May I look at your drawing? Would
Yeah.
you mind? This is not the way I normally work, but thank you for your comments.
I'm trying to make this work.
In terms of the direction, okay.
All right, so,
The blind hall, I'm not sure if you're referring
what,
to the garage, living room, dining room, pantry,
right,
kitchen, breakfast area, and then family. There's more for the bar area and wine. It says wine wall.
wine wall.
Wine wall. To sort of flank the bar area.
Yeah, so what I'm doing here is I'm taking this out. That's gonna allow you to move it back. I'm picking up that square footage right
Oh,
here.
I fully understand.
See where I'm going?
Yep.
And instead of your breakfast area being here,
It would
now
be
sits
between
here.
the two, yes,
It allows us to shift this forward
yes,
to the east.
yes.
By that moving that 7
That
meters,
whole-
isn't that
That whole
interesting?
area could
7
come.
feet, rather. There's your, fix it up at the front.
It's true, but you do lose some of your backyard, there's no question, but I hear what you're saying.
So when I look at these things, I like to see that, is there a hardship? And I put myself in the position of the applicant, and I wonder, does that help you?
Well, yes, but since we're having a bit of a dialogue here, and it's not what you would find in Toronto, I know that, and you are hearing me honestly say I would like to make this more palatable, in fact, something that the neighbors would actually really like to see, is it too late to ask for a deferral? And if I did,
Absolutely within your
Okay.
authority.
if I did, does staff have any idea when we could get back on the docket? I know summer's coming.
So I'll ask staff that question. If there was a deferral, Sean, could we get it back at the next meeting, provided we've got information?
Through you, Mr. Chair, technically the cutoff date for the July meeting was yesterday in terms of submitting new applications. However, this technically wouldn't be a new application, so in terms of providing the sufficient notice requirements and circulating the application again, I think it's very possible that it could go back for the upcoming July meeting.
Okay, I'm going to just do one thing very quickly here. What I want to do is I'm going to adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes because what I want to do is I want to give my colleagues a quick break and allow you to actually make sure of those dates. So we're going to recess for 10 minutes, if that's okay. So we are now in recess for the next 10 minutes, and I'm aware of your Raptors jacket. Thank you. So. Okay, so folks, if you want to grab a seat, we're going to reconvene the meeting. And so my understanding is that there is a very good possibility that Mr. Higgins will be in a position within the prescribed process of the minor variance applications to make a submission to the town in time to potentially get it onto next month's agenda. Obviously, we don't know what the current load potential is for the next agenda. But my understanding is that the town will do everything that it can to process on its part the circulation and comments back for the next meeting. Failing that, it would be the meeting in August. So in discussion with the applicant, I think what I'm going to hear from you, Mr. Higgins, is a request to defer.
To the next available hearing date, whether or not it be July or August. July would be preferable if there was any chance. And I would like the opportunity to come back and show all of you that I've listened hard, and I would like to prove to the neighbors that we can have a design that I expect will be much more appropriate for the street in their eyes.
Thank you very much. So I will look to the committee for a motion to defer this item to a future meeting. Daniel?
Through the chair, I move that we defer to the next available time as requested.
So that is minor variance 2019-11A through D to a future.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Clarence. All in favor? So thank you very much. And I'll just remind members of the public that please note that we will try and get this back to the next meeting next month. But again, watch for a new sign on the property and the normal circulation of notices. Thank you very much, Mr. Higgins. Appreciate it. And thank you to the residents for coming out. Appreciate that.
Thank you all. And I apologize to the rest of you.
Okay. So moving forward, the next application for review and consideration by the committee this evening is minor variance application for Stinson at 29 Church. This is minor variance application 2019-12A through F. The purpose of application 2019-12A, Section 7.2 of the town zoning bylaw requires a minimum front setback of 6 meters. The applicant is proposing to construct a 2-story detached dwelling unit which is 2.7 meters to the front property line, thereby requiring a variance of 3.3 meters. The purpose of application MV 2019-12B, Section 4.20 states eaves may project 0.7 meters into any required yard. The applicant is proposing to construct a 2-story detached dwelling unit with eaves projecting 3.8 meters into the required front yard, thereby requiring a variance of 3.1 meters. Purpose of application MV 2019-12C, Section 7.2 of the town zoning bylaw requires a minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 meters. The applicant is proposing to construct a 2-story detached dwelling unit which is 3.0 meters to the front property line. Sorry, that should read to the rear property line, thereby requiring a variance of 4.5 meters. Purpose of application MV 2019-12D, Section 4.20 of the town zoning bylaw states eaves may project 0.7 meters into any required yard. The applicant is proposing to construct a two-story detached dwelling with unit with eaves projecting 5 meters into the required rear yard, thereby requiring a variance of 4.3 meters. The purpose of MV 2019-12E, Section 7.2 of the town zoning bylaw permits a maximum lot coverage of 35%. The applicant is proposing to construct a two-story detached dwelling unit, with a lot coverage of 45.5%, thereby requiring a variance of 10.5%. The purpose of application MV 2019-12F, Section 5.6.1A of the town zoning bylaw requires a maximum driveway width of 6 meters if the lot frontage is greater or equal to 9 meters and less than 18 meters. The applicant is proposing a driveway width of 8.2 meters, thereby requiring a variance of 2.2 meters. Somewhat similar to the application we reviewed before, I think the conditions in this application may be slightly different. So moving through departments and agencies circulated, planning division. Application reviewed, it is subject to conditions. Building division, preliminary zoning reviewed. Engineering division, application reviewed, no comments. Operational services, application reviewed, subject to conditions. Central York Fire Services, application reviewed, no comments. Electric Utilities, application reviewed, no comments. And York Region, application reviewed, no comments. Is the applicant or agent here this evening? Good evening, sir.
I'm John Stimson, the owner of the property.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm here to answer questions and let the application proceed as required.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here from the public that wishes to speak? I see some hands coming up. Please come forward. Your name and your address would be appreciated.
Hi, my name's Trish Meehan. I live at 80 Victoria Avenue, or Victoria Street.
This is our house right here. This is the house.
Your name, sir?
I am John Meehan,
Thank
80
you.
Victoria Street. This is our house. This is the house in question. Thank you. Front yard setback. Zoning allows for a front yard setback of 6 meters. The current house meets this setback. The current house lines up with the adjacent properties on each side. This is preferred streetscape. The proposed to reduce the front yard setback by over 50% will make 29 Church Street the dominant facade in the relationship to the adjacent properties. This will affect sight lines, overlook, and shadowing. The front yard setback must remain within the 6 meter zoning requirement. Number 2, eaves projection. The zoning allows for 0.7, which is around 2 foot 3 inches. The proposed variance will allow for a projection of 3.8 meters or 12 feet 5 inches, an additional 500%. This is not a minor variance. 3, rear yard setback requirement is 7.5, which is about 25 feet. The variance being sought of is 4.5 meters, which is a variance of 65% from what is allowed. The applicant is proposing a 3 meter setback, but does not include the calculation of the additional box bay window at the rear, which will further reduce the setback. A variance of 65% is not a minor in nature. Number 4, eave projection. Again, 0.7, 2 foot 3 inches permitted under the current bylaws. The proposal of a 5 meter, nearly 16 feet 5 inches, again a massive variance to the setbacks requirements, not minor in nature. Number 5, the final variance is lot coverage. The current zoning allows for 35% lot coverage. Current lot allows for 115 meters square at 35%, or 1,231 square feet. The proposal of 45% coverage flies in the face of stable neighborhoods. The proposed 45%, or 145 meters squared, or 1,560 square feet, this is a variance of over 30% of what's allowed. This variance will create a building envelope of 3,120 square feet. This variance is not minor. Number 6, driveway width. One of the big stable neighborhood issues was narrowing of driveways. The push is to narrow driveways, and the current zoning permits a width of 6 meters. The proposed driveway width is 8.2, which will permit 3 cars side by side along the front north elevation facing Church Street School. The current driveway allows for multiple tandem parking spots on private property. This variance will allow the owners to park 3 cars on municipal lands by failing to provide sufficient front yard setback. This is a very dangerous precedent to set and will have a negative impact on the Church Street School. The effective 45% footprint on stormwater management and sub-pump runoff will cause water to run onto neighboring properties because there's not enough yard to absorb the runoff. With the grade sloping down to the south, this is a great concern to me and my neighbors. I have already installed weeping tile around the north side of my property to collect runoff and protect my landscape investment. In conclusion, the application has 6 variance requirements, which by definition is clearly not minor in nature. The site is challenging, however. The application has made no attempt to comply with current zoning. The applicant has made no attempt to consult with its immediate neighbors, impacting them. The current house is in need of repair, and our main objectives is with the number of deviations from the zoning and what this will mean for our home, as well as the neighborhood. I would ask for applicant to defer so we can work together on a new proposal.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Did you want to add anything? You're okay? You had that look. You had that look that you were about to say something, so I didn't want to. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Brian Murphy. I live at 21 Church Street, just west of the property. I've lived there for 25 years. I've been renovating that house. These are not minor variances. I'm not going to go through them all one by one, but they are significant. My sight line is looking east. I can see the church currently, the full facade of the church, and that would be taken away. It's a very busy area, as you all know, with the library, the church, the cultural center. I have a tough time getting out of my driveway as it is, and with those 3 parking spots right there, I won't be able to see very well. So it would be a real problem for us. And I'd like to say that, you know, they are a higher lot, and with all that pavement, there's not going to be anywhere for the water to run off, and I feel my basement would get seepage through it if it's all pavement.
Just can you repeat your address for me, please?
21 Church Street.
So are you the house immediately to the west?
That's correct.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, perhaps just to orient the members of the committee there, that would be helpful. Yeah. It doesn't matter which way you put it. I think we got it. Sarah, you were there? Yeah. Okay. Actually, you can leave that up if you wish.
Yeah, so it's.
So
The variances are huge. This isn't minor. I don't know why they have a sign that says minor variance, because these are major. Especially the parking would be a real problem for me.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can do one more thing. You haven't left yet.
Mr. Stenson came by my house when I was on lunch, and my wife wasn't home, and asked me to look at some drawings. I did not have time to really look at them, so being a good neighbor, I signed a form saying that I agree with those, but I would like to rescind that letter
Okay.
completely. Okay, thank you.
Noted. Good evening.
Good evening, committee. My name is Matthew Kinsella. I live at 23 Mosley Street. You can't see it from there, but I'm on the back side of the Church Street School. I am familiar with the property and the application. A couple of things that I was a little concerned about was in reducing the front yard setback, we're now creating parking that, if I understand correctly, half of which will be on city property, due to the fact that the front yard setback's only going to be, well, it'll be less than 3 meters. I don't understand how when it was circulated that none of the infrastructure people had a problem with granting essentially a continual right-of-way on their property, which is city property, in the event they ever want to put a sidewalk, underground services, anything like that. You won't be able to disrupt that. So I was surprised to hear that infrastructure didn't say anything about that. I am familiar with the property, and I definitely agree that something should be done with it. I've spoken with Mr. Stinson about it, and it is a property that should be redeveloped. I just think that this, at this point, might not be the right scheme. But I think with consultation with the neighbors, I think something can be done. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Kinsella. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the committee? No? Okay. So I'll look to members of the committee for comments or yes, sir?
My other neighbor, the other neighbor to the side, did send in a letter.
Yes. I have a copy of a letter that is James. It's just signed James, but he does give his address of 33 Church, and so we've had that in our packages, and we are aware of his concerns, mostly related to views from windows from the second story on to his property, related to privacy. So yes, we have that. So back to the members of the committee for any comments or questions. Starting on my left again, Michelle.
Through the chair and to the applicant. I had also a question on the parking in terms of the variance, which one is that one?
That's the
F, is it?
parking is F. Yep.
Yeah, the F.
Driveway.
Yeah. So based on the use of the house, it's for an elderly couple plus a caregiver.
I'm the elderly person.
You're the elderly guy. You don't look that old.
No, I thought it's my wife and I, and our daughter is in a wheelchair.
Okay.
So she's in her mid-30s and she requires care. So that's what the extra spot is for, and that's what the extra unit is for a permanent healthcare worker to reside there.
Okay, and you need 3 cars for that?
Apparently, the bylaw requires 2 for a residential building and 1 for an extra unit, so 3 are required.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Stephen, you're good for now? Clarence, you're good? Daniel? You're good. So, I think staff have done a thorough review here, and they, for the most part, are supportive of the variances, with one exception. And I'm just going to, have you read the staff report? And are you in agreement with the conditions and?
Yes, I believe there was 1 for parking and 1 for arborist and tree allotment as well.
Right, and you're okay with those conditions?
Yes.
Okay. Again, I come back to my fundamental question every time I see the application. And when I saw this application and I look at the design, mostly the interior, in this case, because there is an implication here. And it looks to try and meet your needs as a homeowner. You're not a developer. You're trying to make sure that you're providing for yourself and your family. The unfortunate part of it is you're in a designation being a stable neighborhood, and when variances do come forward, they tend to, in your case, because the lot is small, it's a small lot, and you're trying to work towards meeting your needs. And I understand the reduction to the front setback because you're trying to create a rear yard, which would then have value for you, your family, and your daughter in this case. So there's way more justification for what you're asking for than you heard me very clearly, and members of this committee very clearly express to the previous applicant, who is asking for essentially the same sort of thing as you, with the exception of the lot coverage in your case being quite significantly higher. And that, again, is mentioned in the staff report as being one of the reasons, being the smaller lot. In this particular case, I find myself in a bit of a difficult spot, because I would agree with some of the comments that were made by your neighbors. It is a reduction, and there are some conditions that would be created that don't exist today that would potentially change the character of the street. So in principle, I don't have a problem supporting the direction in which you want to go, but I do struggle a little bit with the degree that you're looking to try and take care of all of those needs on a very small lot. And I'll just ask a question. How long have you owned the property?
August of last year.
August of last year.
And we've been going through the process of, this is the final one, or no, actually it's not the final one. I think we have a couple more hoops we have to go through, but August of last year.
August of last year. Was it your intention when you bought the property to look towards doing what you would like to?
100%. That's what we did. That's exactly what we looked at. We knew it was non-conforming, and we looked at the possible impacts of the variances that would be required, and all the advice we got, informal though it was that we could probably go through, and it was sort of caught by surprise at the last minute with the interim control bylaw. But we got through that, and so here we are today, trying to massage what we thought could be something that we could work to, because the house is larger than the existing one, and we thought we could improve the back lot line and satisfy at least getting that off the back, from an unsightly situation, and we kept the side yards to those neighbors. And I heard a comment about the front part of the house, and actually that's something that we actually considered when we looked at, I think, 33. Now, we did push it out a bit because, again, we wanted the backyard, and we sight-lined all the way along from 33. We said we're not going past that. So we took all of those things into consideration, and then just trying to place the square footage that we required, for to suit ourselves within the 1,500 square foot footprint, and tried to force it in. And I think we did a pretty good job of doing that, and that's why we're here today, to see if we can get this approved. And by the way, there was a comment about meeting with the neighbors, and I think it's Mr. Is it Meehan?
Yeah, that's correct.
I knocked on your door 5 times trying to speak to you.
What, 2 o'clock in the morning?
We have a family forum.
No, I'm not.
No one ever thinks.
So I did try to reach out to you. So
Okay, and we typically would expect that, given the nature of the application and the degree to which the applicant is trying to make it work, and you heard the previous discussion that we had, where clearly the architect did not have a mandate from the developer to go and knock on doors. No. At this point, I just appreciate his comment, he's basically saying that he did try and reach out. Question for staff. This particular application does fall within the stable neighborhood. Can you take me through that process of approval? Because my understanding is that things such as the architecture and exterior materials and you know, those types of things would be reviewed within that context. And am I correct? And when would that have occurred, or when would it occur? Is it post this committee, or at what point, or is it at the submission of permit application?
Through you, Mr. Chair, a stable neighborhood application would need to be submitted, and that is a staff delegated approval. So through that review, staff, we undertake a pretty comprehensive review in terms of urban design, site suitability, massing, the overall scale, conformity to applicable official plan policies, as well as the zoning as well. And but yes, to answer your question, in terms of any urban design related aspects, that is where planning definitely would be completing a very comprehensive review.
So that would be post this committee?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So that, again, to the applicant, would be something that you would... That was in the report as well. Yeah. Okay. So in cases such as this, the committee can look at individual minor variance, in the individual cases on an individual basis, or it can approve all or deny all. And so it's up to the committee on how it wishes to proceed. Oh yeah, as always, after I go through what some of the options are, and I always allow members of the committee one more shot, and I see staff. Sean, yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, would it be helpful for committee to see a map of this particular block, just to compare this lot size to some of the others, such as the other neighboring properties?
Sure. Thank you. So if I look at this, the property at the corner of Church and Yonge on the south side, that is a commercial property, if I'm not mistaken. The next one would be 33. That would be the neighbor. Just want to go to my notes here. That's 33, correct? Sorry, 33 is on the corner, right? And then... Can you make it bigger? Oh, that's much better. Thank you. Right. So, right. So walk me back from Yonge Street. There's the commercial property on the corner of Church and Yonge. I know where I see the library, but walk me back the other way. Oops. Yeah. So 117 Yonge Street. Yep.
which I believe is the, I'm not sure what they call it. But there's the Montessori, and I don't know what business is in here.
Yeah, it's a dentist, right?
Dentist's office.
Yep.
This is, Brian, I forgot your last name.
Okay.
21, this is subject property, and then 33.
Right.
This is the 80 Victoria Street, where Mr. Meehan lives.
Right. Okay, that helps. Yeah, these are very, so those two the corner property and yours are quite small relative to some of the other ones in the neighborhood there. Actually, the smallest. Michelle, I thought you had a follow-up question. Just one sec.
So through the chair and going back to the parking requirement, so with the 60 meter and staying within the allowance of 6 meters, or sorry, 6 meter driveway, and the requirement also of having 3 parking spots because the applicant is looking to do a secondary apartment in the home. To the town, is there a way to get the 3rd parking spot? So you guys are looking at, you probably have, 2 cars, but you need that 3rd parking spot?
If I may, that's already been addressed in the report. And I've been advised that it says in there that I would provide a remap it out, showing a 6 meter, and that they were okay with that, expanding to the 8.2 meters, so I would have the spots, and then abiding by the bylaw of the 6 meter cut at the roadside.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
So you don't need the variance then?
Apparently not.
Well, we could refuse that.
Well, okay, yeah. Okay.
That's what I was told.
If that's the case, okay, then no further questions.
Okay. So are we all clear here? Stephen? Yep. Follow up.
Thank you. So, just for clarity, and I'm sorry, what is the existing lot coverage? I notice we've got various references, and I don't remember it through my reading, and I know it's increasing, but what is the existing building?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't believe that was captured in the report. However, I could actually just give you a pretty quick estimate, if you like. Might take a minute.
Yep. Do you know what that number is? It's 34%.
Yeah, that would make sense because I see there's an increase of 10.5%.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
That's fine, Sean. We're okay with that. And I understand from the staff report that the property in question has been delisted from the town of Aurora's Register of Properties of Cultural and Heritage Value. That's correct, eh? And that was June 11th of 2018. All right, I am going to ask committee for a motion or motions. No, because whether the survey is accurate, we're basing it on what we've received, and we assume that what we've received is accurate. That may not be accurate. That's just reference for us to have a quick picture. Okay. If there may be easements there that would need to be addressed, and they would take precedent over any variance that we would grant. So if that creates another problem, that's something that is not addressed at this table. We can do them individually. If the members of the committee wish to do them on an individual basis, that's fine.
I move for the approval of applications MV 2019-12A to E, and to move to reject the application MV 2019-12F, being the request for minor variance with respect to the width of the driveway.
Do I have a seconder for that?
I'll second that motion to
Okay.
the chair.
Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? So that carries. So essentially what the committee has done is it's approved 12A through E, but F, it's denying that one. Okay? Thank you very much. Okay. Moving along. Is there any new business arising at this meeting? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Daniel?
Through the chair, I move that we adjourn today.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.